This is a dream I had back in 2023. The dream was, to a large extent, very frightening, but it also felt like a warning, something that needed to be heeded for the future. For me, I know that if I have my boys in a dream as young children, this has to be something that comes from God. Most times dreams like that are metaphorical, meaning they have a deeper meaning beyond what you can naturally see with your eyes. As the dream starts out, I saw every type of animal, and not just any type of animal, but animals that were considered predators. There were wolves and tigers, black bears and brown bears. There was even a polar bear. There were lions and cougars and lionesses, hyenas. Every kind of what we would call scary animal was in this dream. The place where I was at in the dream looked a lot like the place I'm staying now, which is Port Angeles, Washington. And there were a lot of open air restaurants, surprisingly. And in these restaurants, people were eating and dining, talking with one another, interacting. You can hear a lot of laughter. And in spite of the laughter, there was a lot of rain that was happening. But people were laughing like it was a sunny day, like there was nothing going on with the weather, there was nothing going on with the atmosphere. But the truth is, everything about this atmosphere was charged. As I looked at these animals, the animals didn't have a look like a lapdog would when he goes up to a person and wags his tail, and you know that the animal's happy. These animals had a very purposeful look in their eyes. Not necessarily giving anything away, like they weren't growling or anything like that, but there was this look like they were being controlled. I remember seeing a polar bear go into a restaurant, for example, and people were laughing and talking. One lady looked over, she said, "Oh, hey, look at the polar bear. Oh, he's so beautiful." And she started to pet it, and the bear didn't respond to her touch. It's like he was looking for something. As he walked through this restaurant, people were almost responding the same way. "Oh my God, there's a polar bear. Aren't they becoming extinct?" And they had conversations about the polar bear. A wolf also joined in this, and he began to go through a beautiful black, cold black wolf, going in through the crowd of people. And people petted them like he was a lapdog. But these animals did not have a look of friendliness in their eyes. Their eyes almost actually looked a little blank. They looked like what you would call like a robot, like there was no feeling, like they weren't going to engage with the people that were engaging with them. And that's something that was disturbing about this whole thing. It's like the people were not clued in to the danger that could possibly be petting an animal who could kill them in probably 1 or 2 bites or a swipe of their hand. It seemed like there was no limit of animals, and almost everywhere I looked, there was an animal merging amongst people. At this point, I realized, I remember I looked over at the polar bear who was coming back out of the restaurant. He turned back in towards the restaurant, and he was looking at a lady who's just gently petting his head, and she's having a drink. And another guy that was sitting there, and he's like, "Yeah, you know, this is quite interesting. We don't see this every day." But the bear is just staring at them. Somewhere at one point, I remember My gaze looked upward, and there was a man who was not on the ground. As a matter of fact, he was somewhat midway in the sky. And I noticed that this man, he looked very kind of martial arts, if you would. His clothing was of a dark gray color with the jacket that he wore, and he also had on black pants. The man looked black in color. But the really unnerving thing about this man is that I began to recognize that he was controlling the animals. He wasn't controlling them with his voice, he was controlling them with his movements. He would move his hand, for example, and I noticed as my gaze would follow his hand that he was telling the animals to go to the right or to the left, and whatever way he moved his hands, that's the way the animals moved, without even looking at them. It's like they were connected to the man that was in the sky. Eventually, I saw the man begin to maneuver each animal into certain parts of the public. And I don't even think the people that were in this atmosphere even knew that the man was there, but I could see him. At one point, I knew that this man was done. And for one moment, he put his gaze on me. I was terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen. But this man slowly began to descend from the sky, and then he landed in front of me. It was still raining hard outside. There was no wind in the rain, but there almost seemed to be purpose in the rain. Like the rain was holding back something. Eventually the man came to where I was, and he told me these very simple words.
Don't be here when the rain stops.
The rain is what is keeping the animals from becoming who they really are. The man began to descend back up into the sky. I still have my children with me. And then the rain began to slow up. To my horror, when the rain eventually stopped, every animal, every predator began to viciously attack the people that were so casually petting them. I grabbed my children and we ran for our lives. It did not seem to matter to the animals who you were. If you were within their range, they were coming after you. I even remember seeing a beautiful little girl. She had to be no more than 4 or 5 years old, and she was petting a bear. And to my astonishment, as I looked further, the bear was eating the little girl's intestines. And she's in shock that she's petting this beautiful bear who is devouring her. The rest of the dream seemed like me and my sons were running. But the interesting thing was that we were covered. As much of the chaos that was coming about, the chaos did not come after us. The rain was a representation of the Holy Spirit. As long as God is involved, even people that don't know who He is are protected by what the rain, what the Holy Spirit provides. But there's something else that can happen when the hand of God is removed from a situation. That is what I pray. God, open our eyes so we can see that this beautiful enemy only has one ambition, and that is to seek and to devour those that come in his way. God help us.